You see, I was so often warned by my friends when I traveled the world and worked in different cultures and in different civilizations that I may lose my identity, that I got very fed up with that warning. I mean, after all, it's not virginity, which sooner or later you have to lose. Identity, I think, is rather something you come to gain. And as recently, 2 years ago, I sat down and write a rather lengthy autobiography, whether I wanted or not, I had to find out whether I had any identity at all. And in fact, I came upon quite a few of them. And so tonight, what I'll kind of rush through my life looking for different identities and to see whether one of them suited me better than another one. I'm not sure I was somebody when I was born, but to speak with Raymond Queneau's Zazie, la vie m'a fait ce que je suis. Life made me what I am. Is it maybe that the two microphones are... No. We'll get the technical problems solved in a while. Here we are. No, it's okay. So let's start anew. As we do in movies, we say we forget what we had so far, and now is the proper start. Roll cameras, sound, focus. The first time I see myself is on a snapshot. It's on a bench in a clearing in the woods. A young woman leans over a sleeping toddler, me. It's the beautiful summer of 1939. She looks very joyful. 6 years later, the same young boy sees American soldiers emerge from these same woods. These are my first memories indeed. But at that point, the young woman, my mother, was already dead for a year, and her image has therefore forever remained young. Is that hearsay, or do I really remember? I have no memories of night air raids spent in underground shelters, even though there had to be many from 1939 till 1945. Indeed, on my 5th birthday in March 1944, we moved out of the city into the countryside, into a little log house. We were bombed out, as the expression went, meaning our house in the industrial suburb of Wiesbaden had been hit by a bomb and was gone. The real event happened a few weeks earlier. As my father received his patients on the ground floor, where he had his doctor's cabinet, my mother warmed up floor wax polish in the kitchen. My 1-year-old little brother Detlef and I played on the 2nd floor. Suddenly, there was huge commotion in the house. We raced down the corridor. Our father stormed out of his medical suit, up the stairs. Too late. Thick smoke came from the kitchen. A spark had ignited the liquid wax, which exploded in a big flame. Mother stood in the kitchen, her body a torch. I know it sounds like a picture from a horror tale picture book, from some Struwwelpeter exactly, for that's how I imagined it. I don't remember having seen it. Gerda, our kitchen help, immediately locked us in the bedroom. I only remember how with my tiny fists I pounded on the door behind which something terrible had happened. That I felt. And decades later I had little Oscar pounding just as desperately on the lavatory door behind which his mother, poor Agnes Mazerat, expired from fish poisoning. Our father took us each Sunday for a walk to the cemetery. I myself allowed myself no feelings, no pain, no mourning for the loss. Father bent over the grave, caressed the rough soil with the back of his hand, and, tears welling up, quietly conversed with Mutti. We, my 2 brothers and I, observed him without too much feeling, except a certain embarrassment at his grief. I have never thought that Mutti lies there, earthbound, since for me she was in heaven, and from there she looked down upon us. Her last words, Father told us, were, now it's all over. And indeed, it was all over. For us maybe childhood, but certainly for the grown-ups it was all over. The war was over and they had lost it. I may have found my first identity, child and orphan, which was soon about to be changed into an Americanized little boy. A few days after my 6th birthday, as I said, my older brother had to climb up the big birch tree to hang a white bedsheet from the top, a sign of our capitulation. Through the woods came big trucks, the American Army, young, friendly soldiers, so different from the haggard Wehrmacht, hoping for Endsieg, that in the days before had passed the house. Black drivers impressed us mostly. We considered them supermen because only men as big and strong as them could drive these trucks. And they looked so different from the black Moor we used to know from the Sarodi chocolate plates. The true reason, Arthur Miller told me when we were making Death of a Salesman years later in New York, the American Army wasn't integrated in the Second World War. That Truman only did in the Korean War. So black soldiers were mostly the transport battalions, except for one Marine Corps. Anyhow, these GSIs, we boys loved them, and not only for the chewing gum and the Butterfingers, they were our natural allies, for they had defeated our parents. Off-limits and fraternization were the first words we learned to ignore. We were interested in the trucks and the guns, they in our bikes and sisters. While outside on the street, we soon learned the lingo of these young GIs from the Dakotas, from Nebraska, from unheard of countries. And we imitated their lifestyle. At home, however, we received an education according to the rule of Kaiser Wilhelm's word, for our father was born before 1900 in Oldenburg and had fought in the First World War. Whenever he went on tour in his battered Fiat to see his patients in the countryside, he took us along. When he ministered over someone's grandma, we peered into pig pens or, when we could find them, into hen houses and cowsheds. Occasionally, half a liter of milk in a jug would be left over for the doctor's boys. On other occasions, a half sackful of beets. When visiting winemakers in the Rhineland, we were allowed to see the cellars where wine was still traditionally fermented. A clean, well-made and bone-dry Riesling would help Father each night to find his much-needed sleep, as he said. It must have been difficult for a widower to deal with the 3 of us in the post-war years. Otherwise, we saw him mostly over dinner. Father would seize every opportunity to make our education. Whatever the topic of conversation, time and again we had to get up and fetch the Brockhaus Encyclopedia, Wasserziehers Thesaurus, or a Duden dictionary to determine the meaning, origin and spelling of a word. During boring afternoons, books became my refuge. I skipped the boyish reading of Karl May very fast.